This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. You know, the maze is just our journey through life. And we start out sometimes thinking that we know exactly who we want to be, how we're going to get there. And guess what? We take turns, we get stuck in the maze, and sometimes we don't know how to pivot. I was like that for a good majority of my life until one day I woke up and I said, wait, there's so much more. I can do so much more. And I don't have to stand here staring at a wall. I started doing that when I started podcasting, and I am lucky to meet some wonderful people like my guest today, Ken Attard. Did I say that right? Oh,
Perfect.
right on. Hey, I love
Actually, much better than most.
well, I never get anybody's names right, so I love what I do. Um, and one of the things that um, I noticed in your bio, Ken, is that you talk about some of the changes you've been through. So can you sort of tell us, like, who did you think you were going to be when you grew up?
Oh wow, where do you want me to start?
Oh, anywhere you want.
What I was going to be when I was younger, I was adamant. I was certain that I was going to be a professional hockey player,
Okay.
without a doubt. So I'm originally from Toronto, Canada. And when I look back now, one of the you just mentioned a wonderful word, pivot, and adapting, and to me those are very, very crucial. When I look back now, I'm now based on the island of Malta, bang in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. So, and I came here when I was 14. My parents are both Maltese, and after 16 years in Canada, they decided to move back. Um, and I have no regrets. I love it here. That's why I'm still here. I've been here for 45 years. So, interestingly enough, I wanted to be a hockey player. I moved to an island that does not have ice. Right. So when I look back and I go, that was a huge, like, adapting and okay, there's other sports and so on and so forth. But to this day, I'm still a hockey fan, and to this day, I love skating. And whenever I get the opportunity, I do, whether I'm off the island or I would like to say that I have manifested over the years, in the last 3 or 4 years, I believe it is 3 years. They now actually set up a temporary rink during December on the island with
Oh,
real
how
ice, all that. So I get blessed for a month where I can go and skate. So so that's what I wanted to be when I was younger, like till about the age, I'd say about to the age of 12, 13. Definitely it was like that was definitely on the
sure.
forefront. I think I did also know that I did want to be in business. I did want to be a business owner. I remember way back as well wanting to own one of these really large, again, connected with sports shops that could provide, all different types of equipment and so on and so forth. So I remember that as well. As it worked out, being here going through school, then I leaned towards economics, accounts, ended up as a banker for a good, I'd say 7 years. Yet, I was at that point, after 7 years at the bank, not that I didn't enjoy the work. I did enjoy the work, yet, I felt like this was going to really take a long time for me to advance. Like even going back, this is going back quite some time. So we're talking, I started working at the bank 1985, so 1990, and the system was very much seniority
Mhm.
to move up. It's a little different nowadays. Yet I said, man, this is just going to take forever. And I decided I moved out into sales, went into sales then, was working with a local company that imports food products. Went into sales, learned a lot during those 3 years. Yet again, I just felt like there was more. And then I happened to have a friend of mine who had a small business that he was looking to expand a bit and asked me if I was willing to come on board. I was going to be doing sales as well, but in a whole different line. And I just carried on from there. And then I became a director of that company. And then in 2000 moved out into retail. And I
Wow.
was in retail. I was in retail then. I opened a shop in 2000. And again, so so many these are all like these moments that I'm talking about are all pivotal moments. Like even the fact that when I again looking back, when I moved away from the banking industry and decided to go into sales from bank to sales, that was considered risky at that time because you that was the mentality was, oh, you've got a good solid job, it's secure, you've got good hours, it's decent pay. And then I was going into a much less basic pay, had to rely more on commission.
Right.
So that was a pivotal moment and a decision that I'm glad I made. And then again, it was in 2000 I decided to open my first retail shop. And again, it didn't have like a tremendous amount of funds behind me or anything like that. Managed to get a small loan, open the shop. And this was 2000. I managed to open it August 2000, which was perfect because it was high season. So Malta is based, very much on tourism. And that high season, August, brilliant. I knew almost from day one, okay, this is going to work because my shop wasn't even open and I just had postcards outside and sold a fair amount of postcards, when you're selling them for 10 cents and 12 cents and you go, okay,
Right.
that was pretty good. So I said, that was really good. And it was moving very nicely. I was very happy with that. And 2001, we had Twin Towers, which affected travel.
Wow.
Now, so I got a full year in, which was a really good year. And I do remember to this day, I say this is a great story. I do remember, like, not that I would ever want that to happen without a doubt, but I do remember looking up to the sky and saying, could you have at least given me 5 years?
Yeah, I understand that. Yes.
Just at least. Anyways, so that I did expand. Like I did open a couple of more shops. Looking back again, lessons learned. I think I expanded. I was undercapitalized, so I expanded too quickly, and then there was some turbulent times where I was like robbing Peter to pay Paul. One shop was doing well, the other not. So anyways, long story short, by 2006, I had opened 3 shops in all, but then by 2006, I pretty well started to shut down everything when it came to shops. In between there, I started to delve into, I got involved in multi-level marketing, network marketing, as many people do. And that's where I got introduced to personal development. So my personal development began around that time as around, I'd say around 2003, something like that. And I started to delve into personal development, started to listen to speakers, read books, attend events, and I got very intrigued. I would, some of the stuff that I was learning, I was like, this is really cool. This is really cool. How come they don't teach us this stuff in school? As many, I think many. And I just carried on that journey. That was sort of like in the background in that journey. I continued to learn. I was actually then selling some events for other people as well, learning a lot along the road as well. And then really fast forward then, so I don't keep people, and I want to
It's
give you an
okay.
opportunity. 2019, end of 2019, I decided, you know what, I founded Mindset Malta, and I just started doing some Facebook Lives with some very generic content. I did that, and then lo and behold, so that's end 2019, March 2020, COVID hit.
Yep.
Now, again, in between all of that as well, I was also had a promotional merchandise business. So I was doing some imports and I was doing promotional merchandise, which was my predominant business by then. Um, and obviously during COVID, that took a nosedive because the last thing companies wanted to buy was something they were going to give away for free.
Right. Exactly.
And to me, so so the timing of end 2019, I started Mindset Malta, and then in March I decided, you know what, I'm going to go full swing into this. I'm going to go full swing because I really didn't want anything as much as possible outside of me be able to stop my business.
You know,
And
it's interesting. You talk about personal development. We don't encourage that. And we get to a point in our lives when we say, there's got to be something else. I don't want to be in banking. Okay. It's just not for me. Yes, it's a steady job. I don't want to be in teaching because whatever your reasons are, but you got there because somebody along the line really said, you know what, Ken, this is what you'd really be good at. You took it and you said, okay, I'm going to try it. But I will say that so many of us, once we try it, if we don't like it, we feel like we're in that maze. Where do I go?
Absolutely. That is something that definitely good. Like I have friends of mine, and again, maybe that's exactly what they wanted. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But I know friends of mine who started working at the bank exactly when I did and are still there. And I mean, it could be exactly what they wanted, but like you said, I think so many find themselves, not really happy in what they're doing. Yet, like you said, they remain in that maze and they feel like they can't get out of it.
Exactly.
They feel like they can't get out of it. And it's true, we get potentially encouraged, let's use encouragement along the line to say, listen, you know what, Ken, I think, you might be good at this or you might be good at that. Yet, I think as well, sometimes we're encouraged to do that because it's just let's say the sign of the times at the time. So,
Right.
I was studying accounts at one point in time simply because there was a lack of accountants at that point in time. So it seemed like, okay, this could be a good opportunity. And it may have been, and for some people it may have been. Yet I think it's absolutely vital, like you're saying, is once you recognize that this isn't really something you want to do. And and the amazing thing is this, even if we take it to, college students or university students, sometimes they have already recognized that what they're studying isn't for them. And they actually just keep on going because they feel guilty for some reason that, I don't know whether they, parents helped them out with whatever it was or so, and they feel like, they have to do it simply because of that. And they're ultimately really, really just doing a discredit to themselves.
Oh, exactly. It's funny. My youngest son um, grew up wanting to do one of two things, or maybe both, as he would always say. Okay. Um, he loves performing. He's got a phenomenal voice. He writes lyrics, does not write music. And he kept thinking, oh, I'm going to be like the next American Idol. Um, and his uncle happens to be in the music industry and kept saying, you don't want to be the next American Idol. It's not the field you want to go into. But he did bits and pieces in entertainment. But his real love is sports. And he took baseball lessons for 10 years. His problem is that he's on the autism spectrum. So he has to do things perfectly. And if Major League says this is how you do it, well, that's how he wanted to do it when he was 10 years old and 15 years old. And it didn't fly. Nobody wanted him on their baseball team because he was playing like a major leaguer. And they were saying, no, this is still athletic league. He was frustrated. He went to college, went into music, realized, I don't want to learn all that stuff. I just want to enjoy music. And so we convinced him to go for a business degree. We said, it's just general. Just get a degree so you have that piece of paper. It was the best thing he ever did. Now, he hated it while he was doing it. But now he is working in the sports industry and he needs that business degree for what he's doing. But he loves what he's doing. And he's realizing all those things I learned, I thought it was all garbage. I never thought I would use it, but realized that he could find a way to use it. And I think that's where so many of us get stuck, because what you learned in banking helped you probably in the businesses you developed.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, without a doubt, there are factors that help. and the if we were to look at this and intertwine it with the personal development and mindset, one of the firm beliefs that I have nowadays, and I love to get people to understand this from a bigger perspective, is that everything essentially is working out for you. So when you are looking at it from that perspective, whether you were whether you were studying something that potentially you didn't really like, at some level that you're in the right place at the right time for what you need at that point in time, for whatever lessons there are to learn, and remembering that you essentially can't see the full picture.
Right.
You're not omnipotent yet. if so you don't have the full picture. But if you have the belief that everything is always working out for me, this means that even through let's say, the challenging moments, it's still working out for you, even though it may appear in that moment not to be. So essentially, wherever you are, at this stage, at point in time in my life, wherever I am right now, it's exactly where I'm meant to be, with all the great stuff, with all the challenging stuff, with whatever it is. It's perfect, exactly the way it's meant to be. And sometimes that can be hard pill to swallow,
Oh, yeah.
especially when someone is going through a challenging moment. Like, I can't just say to someone, "Hey, you know what? You're exactly where you're meant to be. It's all good. It's okay." Like, it's still a challenging moment for them.
Right.
So we have to be graceful on how we can portray that, and we start to flip it, and we start to look at, okay, so what is the good that is coming out of this? Because there's always some sort of like lesson or something to be learned if you're open to it. Always. Some people are not going to be open to it. And again, we have to be, in the position of a consultant or a coach, we have to be at a point that, this is how I believe anyways, where we can go, that's okay. If that's the path that someone wants to go through, and they're not willing to maybe make some shifts, which we might say that might help, that's okay too. That's okay too. And being accepting of that, because ultimately we're all the same. At our core, we're all the same. And this is why I like to talk about now, about bringing soul back into business. It's not
Wow.
about just
Wouldn't
it's
that
not
be
about
wonderful? Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. It absolutely is. And there are many that are willing to. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'll make a bold statement and say, if businesses are not willing to do that, they won't survive,
Well, you
because the world is moving towards more and more collaboration, understanding between each other, and it's not about someone winning and someone losing.
know, I was just at the grocery store yesterday, and it's a store that I've been going to probably for 15 years. And in the last year, their personnel has totally changed. Nobody wants to wait on you. If you ask a question, I don't know, or it's not my job. And so yesterday, I asked for the store manager and I said, "What's happening?" I said, "I just asked a very simple question." And the manager looked at me and she said, "We're not supposed to give out any information. If we don't have it on the shelf, we obviously don't have it. If we have signs, we expect you to read the signs." I said, "Well, then you don't even have to be here. I use the self-checkout anyways." And she looked at me and she said, "You seem unhappy." And I said, "Because I walk in here and I say hi to people, and your people just are, looking straight ahead." I said, "It's not the same store it used to be." And she looked at me and she goes, "Well, things change." Now, things changed, but they can change back. And I think you and I and others who want to see those changes, we can help make them.
Absolutely. And I think it starts from, like, it's a great thing that you brought it up to them, because at least, you know, someone knows. You've told them, listen, because ultimately, a great question with her was, so why would I come here and not go to another store?
Yeah.
Like what is the, so it's really interesting. And for us, and for change to happen that way that you're saying, to things to change, let's say change back if you want to, because that's the way they were, it's ultimately it's about, and that's why I think it's a great thing that you actually asked as well. And you mentioned it and you told them, because it's about um how we are going to act,
Right.
right? Because the way we act is what other people are going to see and potentially say, okay, that would be a really great thing to be like that. I mean, for me, one of my main goals for me whenever I meet someone is that that person can walk away feeling better about themselves than when before they met me. If I can do that, whether that's having a conversation with the cashier at the grocer, whether that's the teller at the bank or whatever, wherever I am, or just my neighbor or whatever, then I think, when someone does that, I think they've accomplished a lot. They've
Exactly.
accomplished a lot when someone can walk away feeling a lot better about themselves, right? And it's these small things that are going to have a significant difference, right? So now I can walk into, like I said, this the soul part or the spirit part. We're all the same at our core. We're all the same. We're all have this exact same spirit. We're all connected. So essentially, I can't hurt someone without hurting myself.
I
And
believe
on the
that.
flip
Yes.
side, I can't be kind to someone without being kind to myself. It's impossible. So now, as I'm entering a business meeting with that perception in mind, and saying, okay, so this isn't me about winning over someone, because if I'm just trying to get one over on someone, I'm just getting one over on myself.
Right.
I want this to be win-win. I want this to be a win all around. I want to see this person beyond, let's say, the physical body, and see them as the true spirit that they are, their soul, and that we're connected and we make a connection. And I think this is profoundly important when it comes to living in general. But if we're
Oh,
going to narrow it down to business, I think it's extremely, extremely important.
absolutely. Now, in your bio, you talk about something, the ARC method.
Hmm.
So when I think of the ARC, I think of McDonald's Golden Arches. Um, talk to me about the ARC method.
Sure, absolutely. So the ARC method, I chose the ARC method not because ARC is some sort of acronym. It's not. I chose ARC simply because an arc or an arch is one of the strongest structures when it comes to architecture. It's an extremely strong foundation. So the ARC method is a very strong foundation when it comes to mindset. So that's why
Okay.
I chose ARC method. And I mean, it starts with an A, and basically it's it's based on 5 pillars. And more than a method, because I did call it a method, but the way I look at it is a method, yet it's a method not like, okay, now you do one, now you do two, now you do three. It's with whatever program I have or session I'm doing with someone, it's intertwined, it's interwoven with whatever it has to be interwoven with whatever type of program one is going through. So it essentially starts with awareness, and awareness is all about learning, yet more importantly as well, or just as important, it's about unlearning.
Very,
Because because I've come to discover that I truly believe that many people have been fooled in many different ways, and not necessarily intentionally. Yet, just because you have been taught something, and potentially a majority of people have been taught something, does not necessarily mean it's the truth.
right.
So, more often than not, there is a certain amount of unlearning that needs to go on first, simply because you just didn't know. You only had one perspective potentially. That's the way you were taught, that's the way you truly believed it was. And now all of a sudden, potentially new perspectives are coming in. So you need to unlearn and then learn. So this is what awareness is all about, because essentially, what you don't know, you don't know. It's as simple
Very
as
true.
that. And again, when it comes to personal development, you mentioned that, we're not really taught. The thing is this, though, and again, another thing that I think many have been fooled to believe. Many have been fooled to believe that the physical aspect of their life, what's going on in their life, what's going on in their outside world, all the things that they need to be doing is more important than the non-physical part of their life, which essentially is the way they are thinking, which is tied in with their beliefs. So now with awareness, you start to learn about some of these components. You start to learn more and more about the fact that your thoughts are actually having a tremendous impact on all of the results and the experiences that you are having in your life. So that's pillar number one, awareness. Uh, Pillar number two, you have actually already mentioned, and that is adapting, which is all about change, which essentially, and it's about embracing change because change is, inevitable. It's going to happen. And we've heard it over and over. It's the
Right.
only constant that there is change. And that's the truth. Change is going to happen. Like I said, I went through some major changes in my life. And anybody can look at those changes. Like, another change I remember when I moved to Malta, the academic level here compared to Canada was much higher. I found myself like lost at school almost. I had to adapt, I had to shift, make new friends, shifted from, a co-ed school to an all boys school, shifted from going to school dressed however I wanted, jeans, t-shirt
Right.
to a uniform. There's so many like change, like you got to adapt. Like if you're not going to accept those changes, embrace those changes, find ways to work with it, it's going to be much more challenging for you
Right.
in your business. Things change. I mean, look at us, man. I'm talking to you from an island that's 120 square miles in the middle of the Mediterranean, and because we have technology.
Right.
Now, I could have chosen to say, I really don't want to learn any of this technology. It's really not me. I'm old enough, blah, 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 blah. But how was that going to serve me? How was that going to help me to move forward? So learning to embrace change, key as well. So that's the second pillar, adapting. The third pillar is alignment. And alignment is all about inspiration. Me, it's all about inspiration, aligning with something that is much bigger than you. You can call it whatever you'd like to call it. Some people like to call it God. Some people like to call it source. Some people like to call it source energy, the field, the quantum field. They're all the same. The term that I use nowadays, which I coined, is the umami self. And why did I call it the umami self? In the food world, umami is when you eat something that is so delicious, it's indescribable. In fact, the definition of umami is the essence of deliciousness.
Okay.
The umami self is the essence of deliciousness of who you truly are. That soul, that spirit that we're talked about. That's who you truly are. And it's learning to align with that, because once you align with that you're aligning essentially with pure love, perfection. There's nothing missing, there's nothing lacking, there's no disease, so you align and you learn to do that. And that's about, there's meditation to use towards that. I like to just call it quiet time. Some quiet time, taking a bit of quiet time where you've switched off everything. You're on your own, no partner, no spouse, no kids, just on your own, and take that time for yourself, whether that be 5 minutes, whether that be 15 minutes, whether you can build that up a little more so that you can actually tap in to something that is your power,
Sure.
is truly your power. And that's where you're going to receive inspiration. That's where you're going to receive ideas, which then takes us right into pillar number 4, which is applying. Now, applying is not about action. It is, yet it's not. And I want to explain why. Because again, this is one of my pet peeves in in the entrepreneurial world is that for the most part, most are taught about making sure that you're taking action. And not only do you need to be taking action, but you need to be taking massive action. And not only do you need to be taking massive action, but you got to be doing this like all the time. Like you need space for the alignment. You need space to slow down as well, because it's only by slowing down that you're actually going to be able to tap into that higher energy, into your umami self. So applying is not about action, because there's a significant difference between action and inspired action. So by aligning, you actually align yourself so you receive inspiration. We're no longer chasing, because
We're no
people are
longer on
chasing
that
their
hamster
goals, and
wheel.
yeah, people are chasing their goals, chasing this, chasing all that. So rather than chasing now, we're aligning so that we're actually drawing in the inspiration, the ideas. And the only way to do that is actually to slow down. Now, once you do that and you do receive inspiration, then you take action on that inspiration. So that you're taking inspired action, so that you're not taking action just for the sake of taking action. Because there's a lot of people doing a lot of action, and a lot of people, what I call busy doing nothing. Just because they're taking action, because that's what they learned, that by taking action, that's significant, that means something, and that means they're more important, or whatever it is, that they're busy, so
Exactly.
on and so forth. So that's the applying. And then the final one, which is a really, really, for at least for me in my life, it's been a big one, is allowing. And allowing is all about trust. And trusting yourself, trusting other people, trusting the divine, that everything, and like I mentioned before, if I can truly trust 100%, and I wish I was there, I'm not quite there yet. Doing my best, because we're learning along the way too, right?
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
it's yeah, but so if I can truly trust 100% that everything is always working out for me, do I really ever need to be worried about anything? If I trusted 100%. Now, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I got to remind myself. And sometimes I got to take a step back and then move back into that alignment again. And that, so this is why I say it's not about, step one, step two, step two. All of these pillars work together synergistically.
Right.
They work together synergistically. And once you're applying all of these, and once you're continuously learning, you're unlearning certain things, you're realizing certain beliefs that have had an effect. And again, just to mention the beliefs, well, let me stop here. Maybe you want to intervene.
Well, you know what I find interesting is that for a good majority of my life, I kept hearing about when you get older, when you get more mature, as you age. And I met a woman about 4 or 5 years ago who just hates ageism to the point of, please, let's not talk about age. And as I got to know her, I kept saying, why aren't we using the word evolve? Because that's what we're doing from the moment we're conceived until we're born, until the moment we die. And she said, wow, I like that better than saying I'm aging. I said, because aging to us is almost like decaying. You can't learn. You're too old to do certain things. But as you evolve, you can keep learning and doing, and you don't have to do the same thing you did yesterday. And I've also learned that as I evolve, I don't have to apologize for what I did yesterday, because that was part of my moving to where I am today. And when we stop apologizing, we start trusting ourselves. At least I do.
Absolutely. So there's a couple of things there. Really interesting what you're saying. So a couple of things. So it's interesting how, and just to tap into, so this lady hearing the word aging. Now, this is really important because we all do this. We put meanings on things. So even when I was talking about alignment and I'm mentioning all of these different things, God, source energy, I mention all of those things because if I just stick with one, so let's use God, for instance, because this is the one, you know, the meaning of God for you is not necessarily the meaning of God for me, which is not necessarily the meaning of God for someone. So for someone hearing God, it could mean something bad to them for whatever reasons. For someone else, it could mean something amazing to them. It's the meaning we're putting on things. It's the meaning we're putting on things. So just because, and again, it's really interesting because just because we've put the meaning on something doesn't mean it's the truth. So just because someone's so, and again, I'm saying this like in the most, I don't know, let's, just playing the devil's advocate here. Just because someone used aging and maybe they didn't mean it in any bad way at all, right?
Absolutely.
But this lady obviously it doesn't work for her. So obviously, if I knew that, I wouldn't. I'd say, listen, as you grow wiser, as you evolve, right? Yeah, because she likes that. So yeah, absolutely, definitely. But it's really interesting because this is the meaning we're putting on it, and the what you're talking about, not having to apologize for what you did before. This taps into what I've been really delving into recently, more and more is the true freedom part. Because I like moving, like I said, I love moving, entrepreneurs, towards that, what I like to call true freedom. And before you come to a point where you really don't care what you think other people are thinking, or what other people are thinking about you, or what other people are saying about you, until you come to that point where you really don't care about that, you really can't have true freedom. It's one of the components. You really can't. And tied in with that is the fact that you start to understand that whatever is happening in your life, wherever you are in your life, whatever results potentially you're getting in your life in different areas, you start to understand or finally realize, come to the belief, because the beliefs are essential, that your worthiness is never, ever, ever compromised. And when you can understand that your worthiness is not compromised ever, again, can anything really bother you? So what? You made a mistake. But now you're not worried that, oh, someone's going to say this or someone's going to say this. I mean, it takes me back to when I had to close my shops, my retail outlets. And the first retail outlet that I had to close, like it was, my baby at the time, right? And I was thinking all of these things about what are people going to think? I'm a failure. I'm this and that. The truth is, no one was thinking that. No one was, people were just going about their own business. And if they thought it, so be it. It has nothing to do with who I am, my worthiness, and who I am. So it's, we start to delve into these things more and more. And that true freedom, and this is why to me, the mindset part is essential, because once you got that up here, once you've shifted those beliefs, nothing can really get in your way.
It's interesting because I grew up in a community where I just never felt like I fit in. I carried that into all relationships. And I didn't realize it until I was an adult. But then I started looking back and I really hadn't been rejected by this group of people. But because I thought I had, I acted towards them as if I didn't belong. And the funny part was we had an elementary school reunion, and it probably was 30 years since then. I remember walking into that reunion, people acting like I was their best friend. And I
That's a
was so,
classic example of the meaning we put on things.
exactly. And I remember that whole evening thinking, why do they remember that? And I kept bringing up things, well, you didn't invite me to your slumber party, or you didn't, whatever it was. And they would look at me like, really? We're having another reunion coming up this July. It's going to be, I think, 60 years. But my mindset is totally different now. I realize that a lot of that was my own thinking. I don't know where it came from, but it doesn't make any difference because I'm learning from that I am who I am. And, they're not all going to like me, especially 60 years later, but that's okay. Because then I also have that freedom, maybe not to like some of them as well, which then says to me, don't even think about that. Just go, just be.
What a really interesting exercise for you would be. I mean, it's going to be challenging, be very challenging. But if you were to so these people we know, it's really interesting. I actually wrote something about this the other day, because I met it again. Same, I bumped into an old friend. So automatically, and this happened to be an old friend where I have some really good memories, some really good fond memories, fun person, laugh, a lot of laughing. I recall that in our teenage years and so on and so forth. So those things come up, right? What a really interesting exercise is if you can, how would you approach that person as if you were approaching someone you didn't know at all? You had no memory.
So if I had
Because
no
remember,
memory,
those are just behaviors, right?
yeah,
So you have no memory, as in, it's like you're just meeting someone new. How would you approach them? Because the way we're approaching people, we're bringing up those old memories. Oh, this person was nice to me. They weren't nice to me. This person was fun. So how it's going to have an effect, potentially can have an effect on our interaction with them, simply because we have a meaning we've put on whatever it is. So if you could do an exercise where you go, okay, if I really had no recollection, I was just meeting this person, I was being just introduced to this person, how would I approach them? And it might be a whole different interaction. It's a really interesting process.
I love that concept. It's like, walking into the grocery store and you don't know somebody, but you feel like, hey, I can have a conversation with you because you have no
Exactly.
preconceived notions of who they are, and
That's
you
it,
don't
right?
know they don't know who you are.
And
Exactly.
then layered on that, what we were talking about before, layered on that, then you have, okay, this person at their essence, their umami self, is exactly the same as mine. Right? So now we are one and the same. Again, how am I going to approach this? How am I going to be kind to myself by being kind to this person? For instance.
Well, this has been even more interesting than I expected, Ken. Um, Tell me, how can my listeners find you? Because I think you have so much more that we haven't even tapped into. And, I always love when I can learn something new. And what I've learned today, not sure how I'm going to phrase it, but I just feel really good about life, even more so than I did than when we started. So I thank you for that. That's an
My
essence of
absolute
brought to
pleasure.
this.
That's I got goosebumps. How they can find me, I think they can absolutely follow me if they'd like to on Instagram or on Facebook at Mindset Malta, without a doubt. That would be awesome if they could follow there. And I do want to offer something to your listeners as well, which is it's a short free online program.
Okay.
And it's called the Mindset Choice, the choice that changes everything. And all they have to do is go to growth for the number 4 entrepreneurs.com.
Okay.
And there they can get to know a little more about myself as well and what this program is about. And they can register for that program there and then. It's a really interesting program. It's not tremendously long. Yet the cool thing, the way I've set it up, is that although they're going to be watching some recorded videos, they have the potential as well to interact with me personally,
Okay.
and potentially me interacting with them. I'm going to interact with them for sure, yet potentially even in real time, depending on what time they're watching it. So potentially there's also going to be real-time connection as well there as well. And so that way there's that interaction, there's that personal touch, and I can also guide them with some stuff if they have any questions as well. So they can definitely find me there as well. And then ultimately, if someone would like to send me an email, they could do that at ken@mindsetmalta.com.
Well, that will all be in the show notes. So there's no excuse for anybody listening who says, I missed all that. Well, just go back to the show notes, whether you're listening on Zoom or you're listening on Apple, it doesn't make any difference. The show notes will be exactly the same. And Ken, we're going to have you back on, because if you made me feel this good today, I cannot imagine, a couple of sessions with you. I think I'm going to have wings. I'm going to be, floating in the air, and I love it. So
I'll do my best.
thank you. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye now.
Thanks a lot. My pleasure.